It's a conversation with our University President, Bob Sternberg. Thank you for joining us out here in Star Valley, sir. It's actually, we're in Laramie, but you have a chance now to visit with the people of Star Valley. We haven't had a chance to get to know you. Eventually you'll travel the whole state, but this is an opportunity to get to know our university president.
Yeah, sure.
So tell us the background. How does a person in psychology and psychiatry get tied in with administration, and how does all that work?
Well, my field is psychology. It's definitely not psychiatry. I started off as a professor at Yale University. I sort of built my career there. I spent 30 years there. And then I was president of the American Psychological Association, and found that I liked administration. I'd been running a center at Yale called, it was basically on how people can improve their abilities, make themselves smarter. So I moved to Tufts University as Dean of Arts and Sciences. And then after doing that for 5 years, I went to Oklahoma State University as Provost and Senior Vice President. Now I'm here in Wyoming.
What intrigued you, sir, about Wyoming? What was the enticement to come out to Wyoming? Because we've got a unique situation out here. One university within the whole state, colleges that feed into it. What enticed you about Wyoming?
Well, one real plus for the university is that there is one four-year university, so you're not competing with other four-year universities for funds. Right. A second thing is that I felt that this is a really great university and that could even be better, and that there was or would be support from within the university for making it the very best land-grant university it could be. And that's a third thing, that it's a land-grant university, which means that its goal is to serve the state of Wyoming by educating active citizens and ethical leaders who will make the state a better place to live and our nation a better place to live. So that was another attraction. I'd visited here to give a talk probably back in the 1980s, and I remembered it as being a place that was just a beautiful place and would be a great place to live. And more recently, we have 2-year-old triplets, and we thought that this would be a great place to raise them, and they're having a great time here. And finally, my wife is from southwest Germany. Southwest Germany, near the French border, and she grew up near the Alps. Spent a lot of her childhood in the Alps, and was eager to live in the Rocky Mountain region. So it just seems like it would be a good place to come to.
A good connection. Well, you arrive on board with the university now, and in a situation where it's been funded well, business college, engineering funding. Your thoughts? So we kind of touched on that. It's a unique situation to have a university that, in just one in the state. Over on our west side of the state, we see Idaho that has to share between 3 universities, Utah, many more. This is a unique situation, and it appears the state legislature's concentrated on putting some money into the university. That makes for a promising future, doesn't it?
Yeah, the legislature has been very generous with the University of Wyoming in terms of just the amount of support we get from the state as a percentage of total support. We're pretty much at the top. And I just met with the governor to discuss our budget request for next year, and I've met with the Capital Construction Committee. So we feel like we've been very supported by the legislature, and that's another great thing about the state of Wyoming, that it's very supportive of education, not only at the college and university level, but at pre-K through 12. It's a state that really cares about the education of its kids.
So you hit the ground running with the budget already and out there working at it.
Yeah.
We see a time now at the university, perhaps a bit of a transition. We have some deans leaving and some task force, the law school, other schools where the deans are leaving. Do you see this as a challenge or maybe an opportunity, acknowledging, of course, the good work of those in the past, but an opportunity to bring the university forward too? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, one dean of engineering left before I came, and another business. By the time I was offered the job, he already had a job offer somewhere else for very much more money, so he was sort of gone before I came. So but there have been some changes since I've come as well, and I think we've had really good people here. We're refocusing a little, maybe, in terms of our historical roots, which is as a land-grant institution that serves the state. And when each president brings in a somewhat different focus, it's not like one's right and another's wrong. It's just that their emphases are different.
Yeah.
And
Different
so,
talents and
yeah,
backgrounds.
and different. Just my real focus is on the development of active citizens and ethical leaders who are going to really make the world a better
Now
place.
that interests me when you say
Yeah.
that. Can we
Sure.
expand on that?
Yeah. Well, I study leadership. I'm not a clinical psychologist. I don't have patients or anything. I'm a research psychologist, and one of the things I study is leadership. And if you look at leaders who fail, it's usually not because they lack IQ points or they're, they don't have degrees from fancy places. It's usually because they lack the characteristics of ethical leaders. Not only ethics, but a willingness to work hard, a sense of responsibility, a sense of subordinating their own interests to those of the entire organization, understanding the needs of their constituencies. And so, I think where the University of Wyoming can make a unique contribution is in educating leaders who understand these things. It's not about what your ACT scores are or your GPA is. It's about your character and who you are as a person.
This fascinates me. This is perhaps this is kind of new in the world of academics. The leadership part of it. Of course, you need them to succeed academically, but character and leadership.
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, we are an academic institution, and we very much care about academics. That's never going to be in question. But I mean, like when I was a freshman in college, I took introductory psychology, and I got a C in the course. My first test grade was an F, so the C was, the professor referred to it as a gift. And 35 years later, as president of the American Psychological Association, which is the largest association of psychologists in the world. And what occurred to me is it's kind of ironic that the president of the APA got a C in intro psych. And so I mentioned it to the guy who was the president the year before me, and he said, well, I got a C in psychology too. And I thought, well, that's funny. You'd think that the presidents of APA would be people who got A's in their intro psych courses. And what I came to realize, and I guess what I realized before, is that, although grades and ACTs and things like that matter, there's, how often on your job are you asked to take a multiple choice test? In real life, the problems aren't given to you, and you're not given 5 choices and you have to choose the right one. The problems are kind of, structured. It's hard sometimes to know what the problem is. It's hard to define it. It's hard to figure out a solution. And so the skills of real life are pretty different from the skills of standardized tests and sometimes in school. So the goal of school is really to make the connection between the academic part of life and the sort of outside part of life. And that's where my focus is. It's on knowledge and skills that you really can use when you take a job and in your personal life. I mean, when I talk about our being the #1 land-grant university, what I'm talking about is that we can get our students great jobs, that they're ready on day one for those jobs, that they're not only prepared for the first job, but their second job and their third job. So it is grounded in academics, but there's so much more to success than just memorizing books and lectures. And that's something I think that professors at the University of Wyoming recognize, that it's about educating the whole person, not just book memorization.
Good material. This is good. I'm surprised, but I'm impressed.
Oh, okay. Well,
this is good. How do you plan on kind of working that into such a big institution? People have to do this with corporations. You're doing it with a big institution with those who already hold degrees, those who are pursuing degrees. that will be a challenge, but no doubt you can do it.
Well, it's not trivial, I can tell you that. But I think there are a few things. One is that you have a clear message. And the clear message is that we're a land-grant institution here to serve the state and educate ethical leaders. Very simple message. Second thing is we're making some changes in admissions so that we'll continue to use ACT scores and grades as one basis for admission, but we'll also expand that to look more at the whole person. So we're going to put some essays on the application that would ask you, for example, tell us about a mistake you made in your life and what you learned from it. And the idea is to look at the person as they really are, not just as a test score and a GPA. Because in the end, you know, as an example with that question, we all make mistakes. I do, you do, everyone does. The question is, what do you learn from them, and how do you do better the next time? So that is sort of one focus we have, is on admissions, that we don't want to reject kids just because they're not great test takers. You know, it's not to say tests aren't important, but there are kids who are just not good test takers, but they really have the ability to change the world. A third change beyond the sort of the marketing and the message and the admissions is that we're opening what we're going to call the University of Wyoming LASSO Center, Learning and Student Success Opportunity Center. Right now, we're losing about 1/4 of our first-year students. 1 out of 4 students here will drop out in the first year, and that isn't where we want to be. So then the question is, well, why are we losing 1 out of 4? And what I've said is that it's different things for different kids. For some kids, it's their academic background that's spotty. For some, it's that they have to learn the ropes of being a college student. They don't really quite understand it. For some, it's that they get a bad grade, like my first grade, you know, which was an F, and then they give up. You know, they don't have the resilience.
And miss the opportunity.
Yeah, and then they just drop out. And for some, it's that they, you know, they're used to their parents or somebody else sort of doing regulation for them. When do you do your homework? When do you go out with your friends? When do you read on the internet or whatever, or watch shows? And so they haven't developed good self-regulation skills. For some, it's that they have financial worries. For some, it's other things. It could be that they don't see the connection between college and their career. It just seems like this isn't preparing me. So the idea of the LASSO Center will be to work with individual students who need help, who, you know, want to do better, and to help, try to keep them from dropping out. So that's another focus we're going to have. So I guess those are examples, but the total picture is that when kids come here, we want them to succeed. And if they get in here, they come. It's not just their responsibility to succeed. It's a mutual responsibility between the university and the students, and we have to make sure we're doing our part. You know, another thing is the kids learn in different ways. And sometimes as teachers, we either teach the way we were taught or the way we learned. And I'd like to see our teachers teaching to the way each individual kid learns. I have 5 children, and they learn in different ways. And if you teach them only in one way, some of the kids will profit and some won't. For example, my son Seth, who's now an adult, he's a practical learner. If he doesn't see the use of what he learns, he just doesn't learn it. My daughter Sarah is a more analytical kind of test, you know, she's a good test taker learner. I'm a creative learner, you know. People learn in different ways. Some are more visual, some are more auditory. So I'd like to see us reflect that in our teaching so that we make sure we can reach each student.
Talk about reaching students and getting them here. That tends to be a bit of a problem sometimes as we lose them out to other states. Any plans in the university to kind of address a bit of a porous situation force meeting where you just slip out through the cracks?
Yeah, one concern I've had since I came here is that in Wyoming, a heck of a lot of people live near the borders.
Right.
So it could be with Colorado or Utah or Idaho or Montana. It could be with South Dakota or Nebraska.
Yeah, we've got this great institution right here in the state.
Yeah, and so we lose too many of the students to other states. And so I think that part of the issue, we have the Hathaway, and that really helps. That provides some money. But we need to do more. One thing we need to do is market throughout the state, especially at the borders, what a great education you can get here at a super price. So it's not just about price, it's about value. That in terms of bang for the buck, it's hard to do better than the University of Wyoming. Another thing that I'd like to do is I'm working with the presidents of the community colleges to forge closer partnerships so that over time students could get 4-year degrees. They could do 2 years of community college and then 2 years of the University of Wyoming, but in their communities. So, you know, whether it's Casper, where we already have some 4-year programs, or it could be Rock Springs, or it could be Sheridan or Gillette, Torrington, wherever it is, they would have the opportunity to study and finish their 4-year degree at home. So if they have a job or a family or, you know, other connections, they wouldn't lose the opportunity to get a 4-year University of Wyoming degree.
Expanding those opportunities.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you've got a busy schedule, but I got 2 more questions.
Okay.
I've got some help from my sports editor
Okay.
over at the newspaper in
Sure.
Star Valley. He travels to Laramie for all home games.
Okay.
And he is a walking encyclopedia on all sports
All
related to
right.
Laramie. So he kind of wanted to know in terms of what constitutes a successful program. Are you putting money into football and basketball with a consultant or consultants? And in your mind, sir, what determines a successful athletic program, whether it's the big sports or the smaller ones?
Well, what determines a successful athletic program, I mean, there are 2 main things, your win-loss record and your ethics. That you're winning a lot of games and you're doing it ethically. But over the summer, I began talking to Tom Berman, our athletic director, and to trustees of the university, that I was concerned that some of our athletic teams were not performing quite as well as one might ideally hope. And that's not to say they're bad. I think we have good teams, but all of us can be better. Our teams can be better. Our departments can be better. University can be better. I can be better. So after discussions, Tom Berman and I thought it would be a good idea to hire an external consultant just to look at our athletics as a system and say, what are the kinds of things we could do, say, in football or men's basketball, to make good teams even better. So we're not targeting any particular aspect of it. We're not targeting the coaches or the stadium or the sports training. We're really looking at it as a system because, you know, as a land-grant institution, we serve the state and the people in the state. And I think some of them, you know, they drive 5 or 6 hours here, 7 hours to see games, and they want to see great games. And some of them haven't been that great. So we just want to be the best we can be.
All right. I said 2 more. One, is there, before we move on to this next one, I want to know about you and your family a little bit more. But first of all, is there anything we haven't talked about in relation to the university that you think would be important to add?
No, I think we've covered, if there are other things you want to ask about, I'd be glad to do that, but I think we've covered a lot of topics.
Now we want to get to know you and your family. You referenced them early, your wife from Germany, your children.
Mm-hmm.
Let us get to know you and your family.
Sure. I spent my early life, I was born in Newark, New Jersey. My father dropped out of high school in the Depression and opened a button store in Newark, New Jersey, a 2nd floor walk up. It was a modest kind of affair. My mother is from Austria, so she didn't finish high school either. So sort of my descent is Austrian. And I grew up born in Newark, moved to Maplewood, New Jersey, went to public schools. Met Karen, and I have children from my first marriage, Seth and Sarah. Seth works for Google. After school he started a business called Meebo.com. He sold it to Google, and now he works for Google. And Sarah is a law student, and she's also she's done with the law school. She's now a PhD student. She's finishing her PhD, and she'll be an assistant professor at Duke University Law School in the fall. Okay. She has one child, one of my grandchildren, a second about to be born, so I'll have one male and one female grandchild. And then Karen and I have triplets who are 2 years old, Samuel, and Melody and Brittany, and the two girls are identical twins, and they really look similar. Yeah, and obviously Sammy isn't an identical twin, and they go to a preschool here in Laramie. Karen and I are both hikers, and we would like, we like to hike with our kids, and they're already getting pretty good at it. Karen's field she started off in business. She has an MBA with a specialty in banking. She started off in banking and then decided she wanted to study psychology, and she studied personality psychology and got her PhD. And so that's kind of the family.
Well-educated family.
I know.
and when you venture out hiking, and what else do you like to do if you don't have to be taking care of the University of Wyoming?
Well, when you have 2-year-old triplets, the time you're not spending on the university, you're pretty much spending with your kids. I mean, they're just such a delight. One of the things I've come to realize as I've gone through life, obviously triplets are not something you plan for, is that, at least for me, the contribution you make to the world in the long term, to me it's about my kids, because they're the ones who carry on after you stop working. When you stop working, people forget about you really fast, but the kids, they're sort of your immortality, if you know what I mean. So when I'm not with the university, of course, I go to football games and I'll go to basketball games, but when I'm not doing university stuff, and our kids go to the games, mostly we're dealing with these rambunctious 2-year-olds who are just learning that they really want to have their own way and that their parents don't know anything. We read a lot, and I write. Karen is on a couple boards here, and she is just very busy with those kids. Karen just had a book published called Love 101. It's a book about love. As I said, her field is personality. Okay. And she's had a grant, so we keep very busy.
Good. Excellent conclusion with your family.
Okay. Thank you.